What's up, everybody? I haven't done one of these in a while, but I'm excited to do this one. I'm excited to drop this video for everybody. Please welcome Albert Sigirian, also known as Big Al on Instagram. This gentleman here has a great story, and I can't wait to share it with you. Al, welcome.
Thank you, Ricky. It's an honor. Thanks.
Awesome, awesome. I will share Al's contact information through Instagram. He has a very big following on Instagram, so anybody that wants to follow him and see what he's doing and what he's all about after this video, that information will be in the description. Let's get into it, Al. So you're a trader. How long have you been trading?
Well, on and off for, I'd say that my college years when I was going to school in Lynchburg University in Virginia. My senior year, I started trading. And I remember I made $5,000. And that was, to me, my senior year. I made that $5,000. And I felt like, I was on top of the world. It was the first money that real substantial money that at the time I thought was something that I did really well. And I remember I bought a used car with that money. So I was really living the grown-up life. So that was my trading experience, senior year, university. I remember I traded a lot of tech back in the day, Intel, AMAT. Those were the names that I traded a lot. But yeah, that's when I started trading.
Okay, so you got some experience. You got some experience. What university did you go to?
I went to a Lynchburg University in Virginia, United States, but originally I was born and raised in Moscow, Russia. In 94, 95, my parents came to the United States because things were not going that well back home. Seems like it's a deja vu now. And so I went to high school in the United States. Then I went to college. I played ball for a year. And then after I graduated, I decided that going back to Europe, going back to Russia at the time was more interesting, because at that time emerging markets were at a point where things could not really go any lower. You could only go but up, especially after the 1998 financial crisis. So I came and I 2001 back to Moscow, and I quickly got a job in finance, and kind of been in finance ever since.
So Russia, America, you played ball, basketball you're referring to, because I know on your Instagram you're always referring to basketball. You got into the stock market, 5K initial trade. But what other background do you have in the stock market? Because I know, were you on the cover of Forbes magazine or something like this? You had a Forbes article.
I was not on the cover of the Forbes magazine. It was in the particular Forbes magazine where there was a big article about myself and about the fund where I worked. It was Emmanuel Macron, the French president. He was on the cover of the magazine. I was inside, so
you look better than
I didn't get that far. I mean, I know we kind of look alike, him and I, and you could have.
I can see it. I can see that's why I thought it was you.
Yeah.
So tell me, like, how did you get in Forbes magazine? Like, what was that about? Like, what was your background in the stock market that you had this profile
So
in there?
basically, ever since I went to college, I was majoring in finance. I had this dream of becoming an investment banker. And after I graduated, as I told you, I went back to Russia. I got a job with PwC, which is a PricewaterhouseCoopers, as an auditor. For a few years, I worked with them. Then I got a chance to, I wanted to say audition. I got a chance to be interviewed at JP Morgan. So I came to the interview. I was scared shitless. Pardon my French. This young guy, 23 years old, speaking to a managing director of an American managing director at JP Morgan. And it just so happened that his name was Bob Fernandez. He ran EM debt for the region. And his wife went to a school that was across the street from the university in the United States where I went to. So immediately, just like that, we had this bond where he felt like in that land where he didn't know anybody, but was very promising. he found a guy who he could connect and who went through the same experience of going to school in the United States. So in a sense, I was a bridge between kind of the Western world, the capital markets, and the Russian clients. So that's how my career in investment banking started at JP Morgan. And at that time, Ricky, I mean, I remember we were doing debt deals for EM borrowers, and 20 minutes after the deal was announced, it was like 4 or 5 times oversubscribed. Anything you did in EM was absolutely being, distributed, oversubscribed, and it was the time to be in that market. So from that perspective, I was actually very fortunate and lucky that I ended up going back and taking advantage of the opportunity in the early part of the century, so to say, of being in investment banking. Then, I worked for 6 years at JP Morgan, got a bit complacent, got a very interesting offer from Goldman, and took them up to kind of build the same platform that we successfully have built at JP Morgan, and worked with them. Then I worked for a big Russian bank for a few years, decided that working for a Russian bank was not something that kind of suited my my character, and ended up as a partner in a hedge fund, a British hedge fund, Gemcorp Capital. I set up to open up and lead the Moscow office. We worked a lot with Russia, with Sub-Saharan Africa. We did a lot of trading, and basically that's how I ended up in Forbes, because we were pretty successful in building out the franchise. Obviously, all of that kind of collapsed not that long ago, and here I am back to the United States. And 3 years ago, I started trading more actively, because prior to the COVID and being an officer of kind of big institutions, it was my fiduciary duty not to trade really, for obvious reasons. You worked in the corporate world, how difficult it may be to kind of combine and to do those things at the same time. So when COVID happened, I figured that it was a time, like for a lot of people who were sitting at home, not able to go out and do anything, I opened up a brokerage account and I started trading. But probably should backtrack a little bit. I was trading while I was working I started trading when I moved from Goldman to Russian bank, because compliance was not as, you could pretty much do, you could trade without, any repercussions, so to say. And I remember 2014, I had probably the biggest loss, the biggest drawdown, which completely influenced me to a point where after I cut my loss, which was, pretty substantial portion of my net worth. It was a time when Russia invaded and annexed Crimea, and most of the capital was tied to Russian equities, Russian fixed income, into ruble, which up until that point was appreciating all the time. So you kind of had, in dollar terms, you would get an added bonus because your base currency would appreciate. So I remember after that big drawdown, when everything kind of collapsed after Russia annexed Crimea, I told myself that, look, this just isn't for you. You're too emotional, and you should not be trading. So I kind of moved away from trading at that time, and I didn't trade for maybe 7 years. Picked it up during COVID. And I kind of had to start everything from scratch. But so in the ballpark, that's why I started trading in college. Obviously, I was involved in finance throughout my entire career, one way or another. But trading wise, I started trading more or less kind of professionally, so to say, seriously, only in 2020.
So that is quite the story. That is a huge story. And the way you just said it, professionally started trading in 2020. You worked for JP Morgan Chase, you worked for Goldman Sachs, you worked in an investment bank in Russia. You were trading in 2014. You had a big drawdown, but only now in 2020 you felt that you're trading professionally. Well, how do you categorize that now from 2020 being professional? What's the difference?
That's a very good question, Ricky, and I've really been given this a lot of thought, especially recently. Trading, it may seem that if you work for a big bank and you have a successful career, you will be good at trading. And this is a misconception. This is like a fallacy that in 99% of the cases is not true. If you look around and you have successful businessmen, you have successful, people in their professions who have excelled and achieved a lot. At some point, they may think that they can carry over their wits and wisdom to trading because everybody is doing this. It's kind of seems to be a cool way of making extra money. But the skill set that would help you achieve success in one field does not automatically translate into trading, even if you have been successful in finance, because what you know sometimes, in most situations in trading, it can hurt you because you think that you understand the market, you think that you know the strategies, you think that you have the insights into how macro works, and but in a sense, most people who start doing this don't really know themselves and don't know how to treat their emotional aspects of trading. And that's why, just like a lot of people, when I first started trading in 2020, I started trading again in 2020. I made like 100% in 6 months of the capital that I invested. I thought I was, how I was
a
in
good
cloud
time.
nine.
It was a
great times.
time.
Months when I had like multiple six-figure income, that's the time when I joined Fit. And everything was going great. But just like that, I gave most of it back because trading is the only profession where you don't really have to know anything, but you can be successful for the time being. You can press a button, put on a trade, and it goes your way because there's a 50-50 chance of either, you're going to be right or you're going to be wrong. So that's how a lot of people got into trading, especially in 2020, but only after 2021, where I had a lot of the drawdowns, I actually started asking myself, but wait a minute, the extra knowledge about the market, the strategies, the macro, what's under the hood, whatnot, does it really, is there a correlation between the information that I learned about the market and my success? And I came to realize that really there isn't any correlation. I can learn 10 new strategies. I can buy additional training resources. I can join other groups. But if I cannot control my own emotions, and if I don't have an edge and proper risk discipline, all of this doesn't matter. Because look at this, 20, 30, 50 years ago, people were trading. They were looking at like Wall Street Journal, for quotes. And they didn't have all the technical, they didn't have trader view, they didn't have a lot of things that we have handy right now. But yet the percentage of successful traders back then and now is the same. Because it all, in my opinion, boils down to, do you treat this as a profession? Do you treat this as kind of a craft where you approach this with certain rules? Or this is just, for fun, add some short-term calls here, put on some shorts there. And I think if you want to do this longer term, you have to have You have to be prepared mentally to be in this game for the long run. And this is why I think maybe a year ago, when I had another big drawdown, I decided that, listening to some of your videos, I figured that, look, it's all about psychology. I mean, trading is, it's all about psychology. And once I was able to get on the path of mastering my own psychology, I started becoming more profitable more consistently, as opposed to having those large drawdowns one day, having a big win the other day. So all of this now has kind of like, my losses are smaller, my winners are bigger, and I never wake up in the middle of the night like I used to, thinking about, what's gonna happen at the open. I mean, if it's a red day, I'm fine because my loss is small. So I kind of changed the attitude from trying to learn more about the market to trying to set parameters within my own psyche that allow me to do this day in and day out.
Okay, this is like breathtaking stuff. This is brilliant. The person that's watching this video is going through, I mean, a lot of people that are watching this video are going through what you probably went through, and it's resonating what you're saying right now. But how did you get to that point? Like, how did you get to that point that, okay, this is just about me. This is just about my human emotions, how I react to these situations, and this is what I'm going to do to fix it. Like, walk me through that. Like, how did you determine this is it, and this is what it's going to take to fix? Versus, I need to learn this. I need to buy this. I need to follow this guy. What was it that just made you stop and say, this is you, man? It's not anything else that you need to learn or anything. It's just you. And then how did you figure it out? Like, what was the aha moment? That's it. This is all I got to do. This is how I'm going to be successful.
You catch me off guard because I can't really pinpoint the one particular kind of eureka moment where I said, oh, okay, that's it. But I think, as you and I discussed a few times when we spoke over the years, you eat shit enough to one day just call it and say, that's it, man. Like, it's not working out. Like, the old stuff is not working. And you dig deep inside and you kind of try to ask yourself, why am I doing the same mistakes over and over again? Is it really for me? Maybe it isn't for me. I mean, I had this moment of kind of revelation a few times over the last few years where I honestly try to ask myself a question like, do you really think this is for you? Because you think you're smart, but I mean, the results don't really show for it. And it was then, I guess, when I said, look, there must be another reason why things are not going the way you want them to. So, I mean, I know this really isn't answering your question exactly, like what was that moment, but I guess you go through the pain enough times, and at some point you just say, look, I mean, something has to be done. And I mean, obviously there were books, obviously there was a lot of psychology kind of videos that I heard you do over the years, and that really helped me a lot. I mean, I'm not trying to give you unnecessary praise. It's factual. I mean, some of the things that I heard you say over the years, it was like, fuck, this, it's like he's talking to me. That's what I have. That's what I'm going through. And so obviously,
I've been there too. Right? I've been there too.
I mean, so many times we had this conversation and you said, I remember you said you experience something enough, and at some point you say enough is enough. And I think that's what happened to me last year when I had my biggest, absolutely biggest month. And then I gave pretty much all of it away over the course of 2 months. And at that point, I was like, look, what am I doing this for? I'm nervous. I remember I took my wife to Maldives maybe a year and a half ago. And I was so excited about trading. And we had the Zoom trade. I don't know if you remember.
I remember. Yeah, Zoom. Yeah.
Man, I couldn't sleep. I was sized up. I was sized beyond kind of what's like times beyond what I should have been sized up. So obviously all of that vacation went to shit because, like I didn't want to do anything with our friends. I was always kind of tired. And I was 40 years old, Ricky. I wasn't like 25 years old, and I guess after that vacation, I asked myself, like, is that the kind of life? Is that the kind of like craft? I know that you like trading, but do you really want it to be like that? And I guess maybe that was the moment. Now that we're talking about, I guess that vacation was the moment where I kind of thought, no, I don't want it to be like this. I also remember we were skiing somewhere back in the day with my family, and I was on the lift checking my BlackBerry for the quotes, and I was like, look, this isn't like, if you're a professional, you can't never tell anybody that you're a professional if you're doing this stuff. Like there has to be. So now I approach trading like a sport. Like I told you I've been a basketball player. Like you can't go and perform your best and score 30 points, or whatever, 10 assists, 5 rebounds, if you haven't slept, if you had an argument with your relatives and you on the floor thinking about all kinds of other things besides the game. It's the same thing in trading. Like, so what I did about a year ago, trading is actually the one profession where there's no rules. Like every day, there's infinite possibilities of what you can do. Infinite amount of trades, capital, etc. The market doesn't tell you you can do this or you can't do that. The market tells you you can do whatever you want to. So unless you have your own internal kind of guidelines, rules, do's and don'ts, you're screwed. Because it's, you're going to be all over the place. So now I have a particular routine that I go through in the morning, before market, during market. I know when to stop. So basically, over the course of those 3 years where I started actively trading, I developed a mechanism which allows me to feel comfortable. Like we had this shit show of a day today, right? I'm fine. Like I knew that in case it was gonna open up the way it did, what would be my max loss? It gives me confidence. I was like, man, I wish I had this knowledge before. But you don't get this knowledge by listening to somebody. You get this knowledge by going through this enough not to go and size up into binary events like, CPI numbers, even though the whole market is thinking that, it will be, it will be bullish, right? Like I was tempted, but I don't do it. Those are the rules. Like if I feel during the day that I've had enough and my mental capacity is like I'm tired, I would hang it up and go do something else. I couldn't do this 2 or 3 years ago because I approached this as a casino, guns blazing, let's size up and hope for one trade, you're going to buy a car. Now maybe it's going to take a few trades, but if you want to do this longer term, I've learned that I have to pace myself and I have to abide by fairly strict, more or less, rules that I'm comfortable with. That's the only way, in my opinion.
You just walked us through 2 years, getting back into 2020, 2021, and where you are in 2022. You just walked us through addiction. You were addicted. You were on the ski lift looking at quotes. You're waking up in the middle of the night. You're in the Maldives and all you're doing is focusing on a Zoom trade because you're too sized up. And you just walked everybody through an addiction. And the biggest struggle traders have is breaking that addiction, right? They can't get away from the charts. I've coached and mentored and traded alongside traders that are on vacation, and all they're doing, we're at the pool, they're on the laptop looking at the charts. And I'm in the pool trying to drink a mojito. Like, guys, we have to, like, you're addicted. So you were very addicted. And somehow you've broken that addiction. within 2 years. By the way, this is very impressive. This is very impressive to do it within 2 years. Generally, it's going to take somebody, their wife leaving them, their husband leaving them, or something before this addiction is broken. As we all know, anything that's addicting in life is hard to break. But you broke it, and you found your way out of this to the point where you're in a very comfortable position right now, comfortable mindset position. Do you think what you're doing right now is going to be sustainable? You're going to, this is it. This is you. You figured it out. It's clicked, and that addiction is past.
I mean, look, no, is a simple answer. There's no such thing as the final destination where, okay, I'm here, now I'm happy, or I'm here, and now I know how to trade. I mean, the devil is always sitting here, whispering in your ear every time you put on a trade. Size it up, do more, take profit early, move a stop. There's always temptation. And this is why I'm talking, this is why I want to go back to the discipline aspect of it. Unless you are self-aware, for the lack of better word, of yourself and your craft, of your trading, you will always go down to those low vibrations where you tend to say, I did just one time. So it's the same thing as, I want to go back to professional sports analogy. You have to be at your A game all the time in order to perform. If you're not at your A game, then you have to mentally understand and realize that, look, I'm not feeling well today or whatnot, and I'm not going to size, or I'm going to go quarter of my full position otherwise. And I think this is the challenge for all of us, yourself included, who I admire as a trader and have learned a lot from, to constantly be self-aware, not to go down the path where you go into tilt, where you start doing crazy stuff. And this is why I like trading now more than I did before, because before I thought about this only like, oh, it's a way to kind of get extra money fast. Now I view trading as kind of my my lifestyle is supporting the trading, and I like the fact that I have to get up at the same time every morning. I don't come to trading to trade, you know, all kind of raggedy and nappy. And I go through the morning routine. I do my yoga. I meditate. I read something. I walk for 10, 15 minutes, sometimes more, when I have more patience outside to get some sunlight. I know that by the time that I'm at my my workstation, I am ready. Like, that gives me the confidence to know that I've done the necessary prep work and I'm ready. And because I've went through all of this, I'm not going to put on a shitty trade. I didn't do all of that just to put on some shitty trade. I did all of this so that I feel that I am more a professional rather than an amateur, right? So the moment where I started treating this with respect as a profession, I guess that was the moment when things started changing. That was, and the other thing that really helped me out a lot, Ricky, was about a year ago, when things were not going well at all. I said, look, the first thing that you need to do in order to stop kind of yourself from falling down the drain is just, when you find yourself in a hole, you know, first thing you do is stop digging. So I took, you know, maybe a week off, and then I said, look, if I want to learn, I need to size 1/4 of what I would otherwise do. And that was a pivotal point in my trading results. I traded with a smaller account, and it was basically the recipe for me to understand that what I was doing wrong, to add to all the other things that I mentioned. I mean, there's no like, I guess there's no recipe. I mean, everyone has reaches success differently, but the failures for most of us result from the same things, right? But how we deal with that, with those shortcomings, some people deal it one way, others differently. I just told you how what helped me get out of the kind of booms and busts of P&L going up and down to kind of slow and steady grind up, some drawdowns. But the most important thing for me right now, and has been for a good part of the past few years, is that I'm fine emotionally. Not one trade, not a single day is gonna change that. So I'm fine.
You're taking the marathon approach now versus the sprint. You stop sprinting.
Yes, something that you have advocated in your group is something that obviously kind of rubbed off on me, and not only you, but other people, other traders that I kind of look up to, all say the same thing. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint, and all the things that I mentioned kind of reinforce the idea that you go through all of this not to bet the range on one trade. You go through this to find proper setup, good entry, some edge, small size, do it over and over again. Do it over and over again. Small losses, slightly bigger gains, preferably, but small losses. So the other thing that I kind of try to instill in my trading game is that, you see, I'm a gambler by nature. Like, I've always been betting on everything: games, casino, basketball court. But in this game, I have to think of myself as a risk manager first, and as a trader second. So that was another thing that I kind of picked up along the way, that before entering a trade, I think, okay, what's the maximum downside? And even though it's not always working out exactly like I want to, that gives me the ability to not have those large drawdowns anymore. Risk manager first, trader second. I know it sounds kind of corny because nobody really wants to be a risk manager, but at the end of the day, that's your money, and nobody feels more,
nobody cares more about your money.
Nobody cares about the money more than you. Yeah, exactly. So a risk management mentality is something that really is helping me stay afloat, because in this game, longevity matters, right? You can catch all the moves, but what you can do is make sure that you don't blow up your account. And the only way you can do that is by employing decent risk management tactics, approach, rules.
So I love it, man. I love it. This is there's a lot of gold in this interview, by the way. Like, I had some questions planned to ask you, but you kind of like hit a lot of things that I think are going to resonate very well with the listener on the other end. So I'm not going to ask you too many more questions, because the value out of this is already tremendous. And but I do want to ask you one more thing, maybe two. Based off of everything you've gone through, based off of everything you know today, the big loss in 2014, huge gains in 2020, big loss in 2021, discovering yourself as a trader, ruining some vacations, fighting yourself out of addiction. Today in 2022, would you go back to your younger self and tell your younger self, before you ever started trading, don't do this, or do it?
It's a philosophical question. On balance, over my career, over the 20 years that I've been working in finance, I've made significantly more money investing as compared to trading. So going back, do I wish I didn't have the drawdown in 2014, which almost destroyed me, my psychology? Of course, I wish I could take it back. But did I learn something from it? Of course I did. right? It's, I mean, I have so many friends right now who are asking me, oh, trading, you're doing this, you're doing that. And I never tell anyone to, yeah, you should start doing it, because it's like an open invitation to lose your money. And like 2-3% of people succeed in this game over the longer run. That's factual. So I think I was lucky enough to make money in my profession over the years that gives me right now a bit of leverage as compared to somebody who needs to make his $200-$400 a day to pay the bills. Like I can trade with a small account for a year, for 6 months, to get my kind of groove back. There's a lot of people out there who can't afford to do that. So would I give advice to go into trading? Probably not. Probably not. But then again, if, just like myself, who had a natural inclination to be, I'm not risk averse. I've always been all in pretty much everything that I did. And I was lucky enough for it to pay out fairly well over the years. So now, as I've become a bit older and hopefully wiser, I can approach this not like a casino, but like as a craft, which not a lot of people will be able to do. And I know this is why I'm not advising trading to none of the people who look at me and say, oh, I want to be like you, or, stuff is hard. And I've lost a lot more trading than I did investing. If I invested all this money that I kind of traded with, I could have probably been better off. But right now, I'm also at a situation where, Russia kind of closed its borders for international trade. And all the businesses that I had in Russia before I left earlier this year, with asset management, with private equity, venture capital, it's kind of collapsed. It's no longer there. So to me, trading ever since Russia started kind of going on the isolation path, trading international markets for me is the closest I could and still can get to being part of the community where I grew up and where I have built my career. So to me, this is natural. Like, I feel like, I mean, this is what I do. I always did, right? And trading is just one form of it, which I happen to really, really like. And I can see that over the years, through trials and adversity, I have managed to get to a point where I'm comfortable doing it.
That's awesome, Mal. That's awesome. The last question I'm going to ask you. At what point you're going to stop? When are you going to say, I am no longer trading? I've reached the point where, is it going to be maybe you're waiting to hear a moment? It's just a moment. Hey, it just feels natural, or I'm trying to achieve this goal. No, I'm going to trade forever. I'm going to be 7 years old on the porch with my rocking chair, still trading off of my phone. When is it going to be? Like, what's going to make you walk away?
Ricky, if 6 months ago somebody told me that I was going to be living back in the United States and having lost a lot of the business that I was building over the last 20 years back in Europe, back in Moscow, I would have laughed at it. So right now, I don't know what's going to happen a year from now. I don't know what's going to happen 6 months from now. I mean, I don't know whether I'm going to stay in the United States, whether I'm going to go to Bali, whether I'm going to go back to Russia. I don't know. Trading wise, all I know is that for as long as kind of I'm capable, I will be in one way, shape, or form involved in finance. I mean, right now we're trying to start a digital asset fund in Dubai with some of the partners. I mean, I have still asset management in Europe with a few other partners. So, I mean, this is my life. I live and breathe finance, be that private equity deals, be that trading. It just so happened that trading is the one thing that I can do on regular. This is like, I consider myself now a trader, because for the last few years, this is the main thing that I do. I mean, I have other things on the sides, but trading is the one thing that I consider that like I have to do day in and day out. And I love doing it, right? I feel like there's so much more I can improve internally to develop myself as a trader. This is just like golf, right? You go in, you start swinging, and you get a hang of it, and you like playing it even more. I mean, at some point you become pretty good, and you start playing with others, and you just same thing with trading. I mean, I'm probably, I'd say, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm maybe at 3 or 4 of my ultimate capacity. I mean, a year ago, I disregarded supports and resistances, Ricky. I mean, just to think the path that I went through over the last 3 years from a technical perspective, right? From a technical analysis perspective, from psychology perspective, it's like going from 0 to 60 in a few seconds.
Yeah.
And so I look forward to, and I mean, maybe if I'm 70, as you said in your example, I'm not going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing something else. But like, I need something to get me edgy. Like, if I'm not trading, if I'm not playing basketball, I'm looking for somewhere to compete, right? Something to do.
Rush. You need some competition.
I need some competition. And it's always been like this. I mean, the most important thing in life, in my opinion, and 2 years ago, I wrote a book. It was published in Russia for the kind of younger generation. And the one thing from that book, which I was trying to convey, is that you have to know who you are. Like, that self-awareness is the number one thing that all of us have to, at some point, understand. Like, I know that I am competitive by nature. And in some way, shape, or form, I have to find ways to compete for me to kind of feel at ease with myself, right? Like, for example, my father is completely different. He is not like me. He's completely opposite, always been, right? But so to me, for as long as I can, I play basketball. Now, I used to play 3-4 times a week. Now I'm 43 years old, man. And like, I play 2 days in a row, then I can walk for a week, right? So the same thing, like, maybe I'm going to pick up a different sport. And the same thing with trading. If, I feel like it's overwhelming and I'm not getting what I want from it, maybe I'll stop. But right now, I'm not looking that far. I mean, it's just beginning, Ricky. For me, I think, there's no reason to think when I'm going to hang it up. I fucking just started.
I love it. I love it. There's one thing before we sign off that, just to touch on all that, is so people are going to want to know, what's your trading style? Like, what do you do? Do you day trade? Do you scalp? Do you swing trade? Do you go individual names? Do you go just the markets? Like, what do you do? I know what you do, but I want to hear the end user needs to know.
That's a very fair question. And I struggled for quite some time trying to, I mean, I guess to me, the biggest challenge was to define what kind of trader am I? You look at how you trade, you look at how some other people trade, and you want to kind of emulate the style of somebody who you view as a role model. But unless you understand how trading works, and unless you find yourself in this game and what works for you, you're never going to be extremely successful. So it took me a while, and I can't say that I know for like 100% certainty that this is exactly my trading style, but I can say that with more success, I have been more successful swing trading large macro positions, kind of, as opposed to sitting here in front of the computer for 8 hours a day trying to like scalp 15-minute candles. And like, I've never been good at that, but I have been fairly successful at kind of scaling into positions before expectation of a pivot. So a week, probably 2 weeks, is the longest that I stay in a position. Sometimes it's only for a few days. And it also goes down to the fact that like I can't be in front of the computer all the time, because the more you are in the market, the higher the chances that either you're going to put on a trade that you're going to lose on. So I try to work for maybe 3-4 hours a day, put on the trades with proper kind of trade plans, and then go and do something else. Because I noticed that there's a inverse correlation between the amount of time I spent trying to trade or look for deals and the success. Usually, you don't need to have more than a few really good trades a month, or even, every few months, to kind of say, okay, I'm a good trader.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people who are constantly in the market. Like today, I was in front of the computer the entire day because we had a special day.
Okay.
I didn't really have any positions. The ones that I had, I closed when in the morning. But it drained me so much, probably more than any other day, just being here and kind of absorbing all this information. I don't know how you do it, Ricky. I mean, you manage in the room, you're trading, you're coaching and mentoring. Like, so to answer your question, basically, I'm more comfortable when I believe and I have conviction in a particular setup. I scale in usually by kind of 3, 4, sometimes 5 entries, to a point where either there's validation or I take a small loss and look for another setup. So that, to me, is something that I feel most comfortable with.
Yeah. Well, listen, what I do is very draining too. It's very draining, especially when you're helping a lot of other traders, going live, doing videos, trying to analyze the market. But listening
But
to
you love doing that, though. You really like. I can feel that you take joy, and there's a lot of pride in doing that.
Yeah, I do. I love this. I love it. I love everything about it. But I will have an end date because I will expire. I will run out of time in this business in terms of what I'm doing. But I think I will be 7 years old on my phone looking at the market sometimes and still thinking about, oh man, maybe we should buy something here. When the wife is just trying to enjoy retirement. This interview is an all-time classic. I can't wait to put this out there. The knowledge bombs that you dropped were unbelievable. And I just think there's so much good advice in here. And none of this advice was you should buy this, the market's going here and the market's going down. None of it was related to opinions and biases in the market. It was just listening to a trader's journey and a very vast experience, like coming from a big institution, Wall Street stuff, to Wall Street banks, to day trading these markets, and listening to your journey and everything you've gone through, up and down, addiction, breaking addiction, creating a habit, taking a professional approach to this thing.
I mean, it's not a pinnacle, right? It's not, yes, I'm at a point right now where I feel comfortable, but in order to be in that place, there's a lot of work that has to go in and day out. And the other thing that I really wanted to say that I completely forgot was that I really was copying a lot of trades from other people who I thought were, and yourself included. But the best trades, the most profitable ones, it just so happens are the ones that
you believe in.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's the right one. You believe in. Yeah. The one that you come up yourself, because there's so much noise out there. Like, that's another thing that I can give as an advice to, maybe somebody who's starting out, trying to kind of learn the game. There's always this confirmation bias is something that is completely destroying people, because you can confirm any bias that you want by going on social media, by listening to somebody. There's so many times where I closed the trade or got into a trade for the wrong reason because I heard something. So this is another thing that I'm trying to do significantly less by relying on my own. I put in trade. I don't go on Twitter to kind of confirm that or So that's something that I have learned also only recently, to follow kind of my own conviction traits.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. The most money you'll ever make in trade is something that you believe in versus something that you're just following, right?
Just like in life, you have to believe, you have to have conviction. Without conviction, without faith in what you do, and it's very difficult to achieve anything, because you're always going to be like, oh, he said, she said, how am I going to look and what am I going to do? And it's never going to work out unless you know for a fact who you are, what you want, and build a plan to achieve it. I know it sounds kind of like a textbook bullshit, but it works. That's how it works.
Real world, man. It's the real world. Big Al, we're gonna end on that note because you just dropped some real life advice for everybody today. And that was great advice for traders that are out there in relation to noise affecting their trade or looking for confirmation bias. Just don't do it. Big Al, thank you so much. This is great. I can't wait to drop this on YouTube. Let's do it again in 2023 and see how your trade is going.
Absolutely, Ricky. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Big Al. See you.